Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Welcome to the Think Factory's Workplace Podcast, powered by OGC Solutions, the podcast where we explore the ever-evolving landscape of workplace dynamics. My name is Alka Bahal. I'm a partner with Outside General Counsel Solutions and the chair of our Corporate Immigration Services Group, and I am your host today. I'm very pleased to have with me today Jonathan Hernandez, Senior Director of Operations and Market Director for Walmart in New Jersey. Welcome to the podcast, Jonathan. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here and have some good discussions.
Wonderful. So why don't we start by you telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and your career journey so far?
Yeah, so a little bit about myself. Obviously, my name's Jonathan Hernandez. I'm a proud father and husband. I was born and raised in New York City. Lived in New York City until I was 12 years old, right after 9/11. My parents had retired and relocated to Orlando, Florida. So growing up after 12 in Orlando, Florida was 100% a joy. Obviously, Disney in the backyard. However, yeah. However, my family was impacted by the recession in 2008, which really forced both my parents back into the workplace. It forced me to put plans for college on hold to contribute and help make ends meet. I worked various jobs before landing an opportunity at Walmart. I started as a cashier when I was 17. Um, and I worked in several areas of a neighborhood market in Orlando. I later transferred to a larger super center to try to get more exposure. And I held several different hourly supervisor and management roles. At around 24, I was blessed with an opportunity to become a store manager. So I relocated back to the Northeast, managed my first store in Pennsylvania. Um, and at the age of 30, after managing several stores, I was promoted to serve as a senior director and market manager, leading 10 stores here in South Jersey and Atlantic City.
That's amazing. So overall, your career with Walmart's been about 17 years, and you really worked your way from the ground up. That's incredible.
Yes, definitely. It's been an amazing journey and a fruitful journey.
That's terrific. And so now you are in New Jersey and you're responsible for 10 stores, over 80 managers, 200 hourly supervisors, and 2,500 associates.
Yeah, right around 2,500 associates. Yes, correct.
Wonderful. That's quite an achievement. That's a lot of people to oversee.
A lot of people. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I see. I hear. So tell me a little bit. I know one of your passions is community support. So tell me a little bit about what that looks like for you in the workplace.
Yeah, so for us, we support several organizations, right? It's a passion of ours. And those organizations will range from, a local little league that's in the community all the way up to a boys and girls club, to the Hispanic Chamber, the statewide Hispanic Chamber here in New Jersey. For me personally, right, I recognize that there's a critical importance to reinvesting in our communities, to work to empower our store leadership to engage in these activities is critical for our future. For my team, we look for ways that we could bring leaders together to support community activities, right? So whether that's participating in a walk for the American Cancer Society, to cleaning a park, or volunteering at a food bank, right? We ensure that our leaders are truly exposed to those types of initiatives, right? Um, just to help stay connected, right? I think it helps us stay connected to the community. It helps us stay connected to our customers, and it's truly about what our core values align to.
That's great. That's a very interesting approach. Not a lot of companies, especially very large companies, are focused on the core values and the community support. So it sounds like you are trying to create well-rounded, well-developed leaders, and I guess the idea is that's going to push down into the ranks. So, what traits do you believe are essential for effective leadership in today's workplace?
I think if I had to narrow it down, I think there's three things that probably come to mind, right, as essential in the workplace today. And uh, it would be communication, first and foremost. I think there's importance to having good collaboration. And then I think there has to be some really good adaptability and resilience, right? So talking on communication, right? I think that as we think about communication, we have a responsibility as leaders to convey our ideas clearly, to work to inspire action, right? Or work to inspire how our associates could complete day-to-day functions. Uh, I think we have a responsibility to ensure that there's an alignment as well between the teams within our stores. And I think there has to just be a clear articulation of goals, right? There has to be active listening as leaders and openness to some feedback and transparency to make sure that we're staying true to our corporate culture. And as we think about collaboration, right, same thing. I think leaders have a responsibility to find a way to bring people together, right, to achieve the goals. And how do you foster trust and how do you foster unity within a team, right? I think that's critical. So promoting open communication and working to resolve conflicts and celebrating the team's successes, it creates that environment that I think any employee in today's atmosphere is truly seeking, right? And then I think about adaptability. We're in a fast-paced, changing world, and the workplace is consistently changing, right? And it's due to technological advances and different economic shifts and, different unforeseen challenges. So leaders have to navigate some uncertainty and, they have to remain composed as they do that. But I think there's an importance to embracing that change and how you remain calm under pressure. And then how do you find creative solutions, right? When those challenges come up. I think that's a critical trait for a leader. So I think communication, collaboration, adaptability, they all go hand in hand. And I think it's important for us as leaders to be able to lean into that.
So true, so true. I want to pick up on something that you mentioned about recognition. So, in your view, what role does recognition play in the workplace?
You know, when it comes to recognition, I always feel no matter how much you raise the bar, there's always room to do better, right? And that's probably just because I'm always very critical of myself as well. Uh, but recognition is important in any business, right? It's critical to our success. I think recognition is more important than we've probably thought in the past, right? It leads to retention. And that leads to a more positive experience for our customers, right? It leads to a more positive experience for our members and for our associates. So nothing beats an associate that is completing a task and a leader taking time to recognize that individual with just a sincere thank you, right? I think back to just some things that I like to do, and it goes a long way, right? I have these personalized pins, and they're made after my Bitmoji, so they're a little funny sometimes. Um, you know,
Mhm.
and they feature different phrases, right? Like thank you or you knocked it out the park, right? Um, and I have some customized challenge coins as well for uh, associates who have served our country, right? That work in our stores. And
Mm.
I think, additionally, I like to lean into social media, right? Everyone has a device in their hands. So we have an internal page, and there's nothing like seeing, that you're being tagged in a post and you're being recognized by a leader for, a feature that you built or for a product that you went after or for helping a customer. I think that helps us connect with our teams, and as leaders, we have to model that behavior. But a sincere thank you goes a long way, and I really think that's what our employees are after, our associates are after. That makes a world of difference.
That's really terrific. And that was one of the things that really caught my attention on your LinkedIn. I noticed a number of posts you've put up recognizing associates, especially ones who've achieved a long period of time with Walmart. And that really impressed me. There's not a lot of folks out there that would take the time, to recognize that or to elevate that person. So I can imagine that really lends itself to retention. I mean, all companies struggle with retention these days. That's a really great strategy. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
so tell me, what do you think, how important do you think mental health support is in the workplace today? This is something that's really kind of cropped up more since COVID. Do you think it's still relevant? Do you think it's something we still need to be paying attention to?
Yeah, 100%. Listen, it's still relevant, right? It will continue to be relevant. It's a critical topic in our workplace environment. And I think in every business, we have to find a way to lean in, and we have to find a way to understand. The public just went through 4 years, right? Or we're 4 years out from a global pandemic, right? And
Mhm.
it changed everyone's way of life, right? So
Mhm.
life as we knew it was kind of turned upside down. It was different, right? And you know, we take this inside the company, we take this very seriously for our associates, and we find ways to offer support, not just from a leadership perspective, but from things that we offer, support that we offer our associates, like Lyra. And listen, we strive to ensure, I think, as leaders, that we remain approachable. Um,
Mhm.
People want to go to work. They want to provide for their families. They want to feel connected to what they do. And I think it's critical for leaders that we create an atmosphere for everyone to be comfortable when they show up, and where every employee has the ability to express themselves, right, and be heard. And I think that goes a long way to providing an atmosphere that's mentally, emotionally safe for people today.
That is terrific. And how do you foster that? How do you encourage feedback from, your immediate subordinates and all the way down the chain?
You know, I think it's just about just transparency, being open and creating an environment where your teams can express themselves and provide feedback in a
Mhm.
safe way, in a safe fashion. Um, I think that's the most important thing. I am an individual who will sometimes pull a leader out of a store and just say, hey, let's grab a bite to eat, right? And let's talk. Let's talk about what's going on in your business. Let's talk about what's going on in your store. Let's talk about what's going well, where your opportunities exist. And let's talk about your family, right? Let's talk about what's going on at home. And I like to think that it has helped make me successful, because leaders will feel a connection to me beyond just the four walls that is our business. So I think being human is a critical part, right? We all have tasks and responsibilities that we have to get accomplished, but pausing to listen to people and creating an atmosphere that's safe, it's important.
That's a terrific viewpoint, and I'm sure that has worked well for you, given how successful you've been in the the trajectory that your career has taken. So, I love that perspective. I love that you are supportive and open to everybody in your team, and that you're passing this on to your leaders. I think that's particularly impressive. Um, so, what role or how do you think diversity inclusion is important in the workplace? Is it important? And if so, how?
You know, I think for us, right? We aim to have a business that reflects the communities that we serve. That it provides a sense of belonging. Our country is a melting pot, right, of opportunities, and I think that is just an incredibly beautiful state. It's an incredibly beautiful, country that we live in. So, you take my story for example, right? I'm a Latino who grew up in a basement in New York City. My parents had faced financial struggles, but they worked hard, right? They worked hard. And fast forward to the struggles that I had experienced, right? In life, Walmart, right, just opened their doors and understood that if you're going to work hard, you deserve an opportunity to grow. And I've been able to advance my career regardless of my background, because of my, unique experience that I bring and my creativity, right? And my perspective. And, I'm fortunate that this company creates an environment where they welcome everyone's unique perspective and experience, right? Because not a lot of organizations do that today.
That's so true. That's so true. In fact, Walmart is a pretty diverse workforce, right? I remember reading Walmart's workforce report from 21, and it mentioned about 28% of the workforce is diverse, about almost 30% of the corporate officers are women. With that, it's particularly impressive. So,
It is, and I think while I'm not the subject matter expert, to probably lean into that, I think we're doing some great work in that space.
wonderful. So, drawing back on your own personal experience, what do you think the most important lesson as a leader you've learned?
Um, Listen, there's a lot of lessons. There's a lot of lessons out there. But I think one thing that stands out, right, and I've learned this as a leader, is that you are going to make mistakes and you will experience failure. It's inevitable and it will happen, right? You cannot allow the failures and the mistakes to define you. Instead, you have to find a way to allow that to make you stronger, to help you grow, and you have to use that and put that in your toolbox to make you wiser. Um, you know, they help sharpen the tools that we have in our toolbox. So you can't be afraid to fail or make a mistake. You got to be willing to take risk. You have to be willing to take different chances, and you have to step into the unknown. I think each mishap, right, is an opportunity for us to just learn and improve. And it's truly proven true for me, right? But I think it's through these experiences that you truly develop this resilience and uh, deeper understanding of your strengths and your weaknesses. And as a leader, embracing failure and learning from what transpired, it not only helps you grow, but it also sets an example for your team. It creates a culture where your team can feel safe. They're safe to innovate. They're safe to take risk, right? And knowing that mistakes are part of the journey towards success. Um, so for me, it's take the leap, right? Make the bold decision, and just remember that every failure is a stepping stone to a greater achievement. And you should not be an individual who hides that, but shares that and allow yourself to project that as strength, and learn from it.
That is great advice. I'm going to take that to heart myself. It's so easy to let those mistakes stop us, right? Or inhibit how we move forward or whether we move forward. So to kind of realign our thinking to think about, okay, well, what can I learn from this and how can I do better? That makes a lot of sense, and I can see a way to grow from there. I can see how that would be definitely a better path towards
It,
success.
it really is. And I think going back to the mental health question, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think it's a common fear for people, right? We don't want to make mistakes. We're afraid to fail. But creating an environment where it's about how do you fail fast and then pivot and use that as strength and motivation to succeed. That's important. And I think we have more leaders that are understanding that today. And I
Hmm.
think that dynamic continues to change and evolve, and that's the exciting part. I think that's the sweet spot for us.
Yeah, that is so true. When you've got people entering the workforce or are new to the position or whatever it may be, they need to learn. They need the opportunity to fail and to learn. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. So thank you.
of course.
So, what are some unique aspects? Well, I think you've described to us a lot of unique aspects about your company culture that you're proud of. From my perspective, you've fostered a wonderful environment in which people can grow and thrive. And you personally have benefited from that within Walmart. A 17-year career journey from a cashier to overseeing 10 stores and thousands of employees is really amazing, really applaudable. So
Thank you.
congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So what's next for you? What do you see on the horizon?
I for me, I keep everything open. I have an open mind, and I'm ready to embrace anything that comes my way. I never like to limit myself. Relocating, when I relocated from Florida, right, to take on a store and take on this challenge, I relocated alone back to the Northeast, and my family at the time, just they didn't have the means or opportunity to move, but this was a big opportunity for me. So sometimes you got to take a leap of faith, right? And you have to just trust your instincts. And I've always been one to not be afraid to take on a challenge. So whatever opportunity that lies before me, I will definitely be one to take it, and make sure that it's the right thing for my family. So it probably doesn't necessarily fully answer the question,
It does.
but
You're
I think
waiting for
it,
the next challenge, right?
yeah, I think it's just awaiting for the right opportunity.
I like that. That's good. So I have to keep your eyes open and look out for that, right? That's
Of
definitely a
course,
lesson people have to take away from this. Watch for your next opportunity.
of course.
So I imagine in your future plans, you also have some plans to go hit some more states. You have a goal in your travel planning, right?
Well, listen, I love traveling.
I know.
And I think travel is important. So not just in visiting different states, and I have a personal goal of, being able to visit different states and explore even different areas in around the world, right? And listen, that's a passion for me. We've kind of, talked through that, and I enjoy traveling. I enjoy visiting um, different communities and understanding history within those communities and understanding the culture. And I think even when you look at some respective states, right, you see the rich culture that could exist within those states. Um, and visiting overseas even and visiting islands, right? Listen, I'm that person that will hop in a cab and tell the driver, hey, take me to the local spots, right? Take me to some of your favorite sites. Let's check that out. People matter to me. So I think when you get down on a personal level, there's not a lot that separates us. So being able to continue to explore and connect with those communities, breaking bread with people, right, and understanding cultures and understanding communities. I think that's probably the best part that I enjoy of not only our country that's a melting pot, but also exploring other communities.
I think that really shines through in your personality and in your leadership style. You're very human. You really look for connection. You're open to other cultures and points of view. So from my perspective, I think that makes you an amazing human being and also a terrific leader. Like Walmart's very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
So before we wrap up, we have one question we ask all of our podcast guests, which I did not prepare you for. So answer to your best of ability, whatever you think it might be. This is sort of a Think Factory trademark. What keeps you up at night?
That's a good question, right? I think there's a lot of things that keep me that keep me up at night sometimes, right? Um, I think the biggest thing that I see today, right, is really around emotional intelligence. And I'll take it back to the mental health question, right? I think, you know, our ability to try to understand, manage, and respond not only to our own emotions, but the emotions of, leaders that are in our buildings and our associates and people, customers, right? There's a lot going on in the world. So our ability to really be aware and have strong interpersonal relationships and being able to manage conflicts is what's going to help us lead effectively. Um, and sometimes I guess what keeps me up is, are we doing am I doing a good enough job in that space? Um, because I think it's important. It's important to the future generation that we're more aware and we have that emotional intelligence as leaders if we want to be able to succeed because the workforce, is changing.
That's really so true. So true. Well, thank you so much for being here with me and sharing your insights. It was a really nice discussion. I think I learned a couple of lessons. I hope our reader or listeners enjoyed it as well.
It was a pleasure to be here, and it was a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thanks, Jonathan. Be well. Thanks, listeners. Until next time.